I have to say, not to geek out a little bit, but I mean, I really dug this show. I watched it twice. Um,
Thank
I
you.
watched I watched it when it first came out, and when I was prepping because I've done some other interviews for the show, and I just think it's really solid. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
Oh, thank you for talking with me.
Yeah. Um, I guess the first general question that I had for you as a choreographer, when you hear the words Chippendales, I guess, or like when you first heard about this project, I guess as a choreographer, what is your first, I don't say first instinct, but like first image that pops into your head when you hear like such a specific iconic name?
Well, the first thing I think of when I think of Chippendales, I think of and pulling the pants off. Like that's it, right? That's to me, that is the iconic
You're
move.
like, let's be serious.
I mean, that's what we're there for. Come on.
Right, exactly.
um, I think, well, because I know I've been involved in this project for a while, and
Uh-huh.
Rob's creating this like as a feature originally, and I was involved with Dylan Sellers. So from the beginning, so I knew that it was starting from this period. So when I think about Chippendales at that period, I think groundbreaking.
Hmm.
Nothing like this had ever been done. Nobody had
Right.
ever seen anything like this before. I think tons of cocaine, this drug fueled movement.
Okay.
Um, and I think of this sort of like iconic, that those iconic styles, that they were wearing, and creating this, and you've seen it twice now, how, they
Mhm.
created that the breakaway. It's like all of these sort of these barriers that they were breaking at a time when everything, now we take it all for granted, right? It's all old news now. We see it, Magic Mike. It's like that's all been done. And when you really look back at this, the original footage and what was going on then, it's very, not that it's tame, because they were like reaching and going for it. I mean, there was a lot
Mhm.
of activity, a lot more than is going on now, at the Magic Mike show in Vegas. I mean, it was kind of like there were no rules. It's like Mexico back in the 1990s, right? You could do
Right.
anything. Uh, uh, so I just think a lot of free for all, and just and joy, and like women being able to, like, it was at a period of time where women too, where they were really able to express themselves, and like for the first time really get like break away from whatever it was that their daytime persona was, and be these sort of wild women from.
Yeah. I remember as like a little closeted like young teenager, and I like maybe that's why I was like so eager to like snatch up the show to talk to all the talent, not because there's good looking men in it, but it's just I remember the calendar. Like I remember I stole one from like a Borders books when I was 13 or 14, and it was just sort of like that was the first time that I saw anything like that. So yeah, I totally
Please
get
tell me that you still have that calendar.
I think it's at my mom's house somewhere because I don't like to throw stuff like that away. So when I talked to Murray, who's like, please tell me you have it. I was like, I have to go. So I will drive back to Pittsburgh to find it because I want to know.
We made a poster of our dancers. I don't
Mhm.
know if you've seen that.
No,
You might
I
be able
have
to.
a I
Let
have
me
a
see.
crush on the guy with the mustache and the long hair.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I
Oh
love
yeah.
it. So cute.
Oh, he's the Mikey.
Yeah.
He's the best. Have you spoken with him? You've spoken with the dancers?
No, not yet.
Oh yeah, they're wonderful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They're all just dolls.
Okay. Good. That's a very good thing for me to hear. Yeah. I did want to ask when you say free for all, I think the first time that we see, the gentleman dancing is when there are no rules and there is no structure. And I was curious for the guys that are in that first scene, the first dance scene when they open Chippendales and they have that first audience of very eager women. I was curious, like, what kind of notes you gave any of the guys there? Did you tell them just like do whatever you want? I was just curious about like controlled chaos almost.
Right. So they were cast originally. I was trying to cast dancers to do that, and it didn't
Mhm.
work because it didn't have, like you said, like the level of chaos and sort of that raw, you know, really just like guy off the street feel, which is really what it
Okay.
was. So went back, redid it, got real guys.
Mhm.
And they just bring a level of authenticity to
Yeah.
it. So I did design them. It's all designed, but to to like before they did like the Life at the Outpost, which is this dance, like the cowboy
Yeah.
dance,
Yeah.
that was totally choreographed. But the other stuff that they did in the beginning, when there's kind of a free for all, it's like, okay, you're going to go over here, and I want you to do something like this. So I gave them sort of these like boundaries to work within, and really the main thing that I had to control was that it stayed within the period. Because they would start to like, do these like grinding on them and stuff. It's like, okay, no, 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 no. Pull it back, pull it back. So, I'd have to, demonstrate and show them these are the things we could do, and show them videos of like, this is period dancing and stuff. But it was great because it's funny, in the beginning, they were a little insecure because these guys are not
Yeah.
dancers, right? So it's like to
Right.
go, the whole thing is like someone would just take off their things and just kind of stand there. And, it was kind of great to have that too. But then by the time we ended up shooting, like at the end of the day of that first sequence, they were just all over the place, loving it, loving themselves, just
Okay.
all over the women.
I thought it was so surprising. I'm glad you said period dancing, because after I saw the show, I went back to Magic Mike and to sort of see what it would look like, looking at clips online of the actual show. And then I was so surprised in my brain that I realized like the moves that are in Welcome to Chippendales, excuse me, are not in like they're not the same, which I think is so interesting when you say just period choreography for something like men taking their clothes off, just because I don't know, like I guess I wanted to know about that just because I don't know, I think maybe men at that time period probably didn't act a certain way. I don't know. I sort of don't know what I'm saying, but
Right. There was, right. No, I totally get what you're saying. It's like now we already have this sort of preconceived idea of what a male stripper is.
right.
It's almost like now, like you see guys, it's almost like a spoof on a stripper in a way. Like it's
Yeah.
so sort of has become sort of so done, right? And we know
Hmm.
what to expect. But then because it hadn't happened yet, nobody had seen it. Um, I'll tell you, it's really funny. Like one of the first things I saw, and I really wanted to try to recreate it, was one of the very, very first dancers was this guy. He was super, super popular. I don't know why, but he was so popular. He looked like maybe your dentist, or, just like, he was just this nebbishy little guy with, he's kind of pale. He had like no physique, a little bit of a tummy, a little balding,
Yeah.
and he wore this cape and this and this little like black underwear, and he
Okay.
would dance with his cape, and he would do these like sort of jazz layouts and stuff, and so he had like maybe some jazz background, but they just loved him, and it was so it was this like unbridled joy, and he was so happy to be there, and he would play to these women, but not in a way that was like this overtly sexual. It was playful and fun and engaging, and it was just wonderful. And I think something has kind of been lost, where now it's become so what's the word I wanted to look for? It's so performative. It's
Yeah.
so performative now. It's backflips into the thing and the la, and everyone's hot together. It's lost a little bit of the organic, personal kind of feel. And not that what they do now is absolutely beautiful. I'm not taking it away from anything. And I feel like the progression choreography is, obviously it's so superior, but there is something so pure and wonderful about that time, and the discovery of all these things, and the evolution, of how they took off their clothes. Like even like if you remember, Quentin Player does this one sequence where he's taking off his clothes, and it's before Julia has created the tearaway, and he has to sit down, he's pulling off these boots, and it's kind of awkward, and it's like that's how they did it, and it was kind of great. They get on the floor and they give the women their sorry about my give the woman their pant, and pull the pants off, and it was so awkward, and I don't know, just kind of like you felt like you're in that moment.
Yeah, it made me think about like maybe these guys who try out to be a dancer, like they may think of like maybe the time that they would go to a strip club and make like, maybe they're like, well, I wouldn't dance like how a woman dancer does, but maybe that's like the only reference point that a person at that time would have, since Chippendales is like the only, the first iteration of that.
Yeah.
I did want to ask about the big choreography sequence where Nick is doing it outside. When he
Oh, the audition.
yeah, I loved that scene just because I think it surprises the viewer that a man like Nick DeNoia wants legitimate dancers and not just men who are, sexy and can rip everything off. But I'm maybe just also a sucker for big audition sequences with lots of good looking men dancing around. I guess since that's an introduction to the kind of dancing that Nick wants in his show, what did you sort of want to show us in that audition sequence?
Well, so what I was going for was, and we actually did shoot it this way, but because of course in a episodic, you can't do the full thing like you would do in a big feature. But what
Mm-hmm.
I wanted was sort of the sense of all that jazz, a
Mm-hmm.
chorus line, all of these big, even Staying Alive, these pieces where you are with these people from the beginning when they come in and they're hopeful, and what's inside the choreographer's head as he's looking at these people, what he's looking for. Like one shot I wanted to get him down, so he's down low and he's looking, and the dancers are traveling past him. He's looking at these legs and these really long telescopic like 1970s shots. So I wanted it to feel number one period. And look, I was a dancer in the 80s. Like that's what we did. Like that is what we went through. I would go to parking lots and audition just like that.
Wow.
I mean, it was,
Wow, really? Oh,
oh yeah,
cool.
they make you do floor work, like on a gravel, you'd
Like
be like,
on pavement? Holy shit.
oh yeah, and you'd pull out your knee pads and you'd do it, because you want that job. So what he did was really authentic. And what was super fun with Murray, who's just brilliant, and I am madly in love with him, is that he's so game and he's so talented. I said, look, I want you to choreograph this and do this sequence the way a real choreographer would do this in this moment. I don't want you to standing up there calling out 5, 6, 7, 8. And he's like, okay, what
Mm,
does that look like? So I'm like, okay, what you're gonna do is I would turn around, I'd face like the same direction as the people, they're behind
mm-hmm,
me. And I would move my body to the right, they would move theirs to the right, move it to the left like that. So I'm doing
mm-hmm.
the choreography. Then halfway through, I'm going to flip around, reverse my choreography, and continue mirroring them. And then
Oh,
another
okay.
way through, you're going to jump up on the table and you're going to do this other thing up here so the people in the back can see you. And yours is seamless, but you're constantly moving, facing different directions. Now you're dancing through them, but you're still keeping the choreography going. And
Okay.
yeah, and you don't think about it. Like it's something that you're just watching and you just take it for granted. You don't understand like what's going on in order to make all those changes.
Yeah. Like, because when I was watching that sequence for the first time, like I've been in audition rooms where there's like, 50 people, like a cattle call and stuff like that. And I was like, how did he learn how to like act like a choreographer in the room? Because it felt so authentic to me, like the way that he would bring somebody up and talk to them, give them a note, and then do it again. I don't know, there's something about it that I was just like, that is so specific that I'm
Yeah.
that you explain that, because
I did that with him, and that was all designed. So it was like,
mm,
which is great because he's such a good actor. He makes it
yeah.
fresh every time. So all of that coming through, stopping with one person while they're doing it, making this adjustment, the arm line here, there, that's the stuff that they did. And so I wanted to, I'm so glad that you're saying that, by the way. I so appreciate that you saw that and like noticed that, because it's really what I was trying to convey, is like what that is like in that
Hmm.
audition, and what the people are feeling and what the choreographer is feeling and what he's looking for.
Yeah.
Um, so
it's
yay.
it's like yeah, that's like the theater kid in me. It was just sort of like something like went off in my brain. I was like, bing. It was just like that. It's like a sense memory thing almost in terms of
Like
choreo.
Pavlovian, you feel like you're
No, yeah, totally. um I want to ask about Dr. Hunkenstein, just because for Nick, he has so much riding on the line for it. It is in the space in New York that is, brand new. Um, it is very theatrical, but theatrical in a different way than Chippendales in Los Angeles is. So I guess I wanted to know, how did you want to choreograph that so it has its own uh not voice, but have its own
identity.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's a really, really good point. So when he breaks away, you know, it's it, it's important to Nick to be able to show the world what it is that he's been trying to do, and that what, Steve Banerjee has not been allowing him to do, right? He's been sort of, you know, restrained, right, by
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
When he's had all these ideas, and remember when he tells, Steve about, look, I have this thing, and, he and Juliet are doing that stuff, and he's like, you're fucking crazy. I'm not
Yeah,
going
he
to do
just
that.
like shoots it down automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't even listen to it because he doesn't understand it, because he's not, he's not creative, right? He's not creative. So he finally gets this opportunity now to do this. And it's like, I think he just unleashes it. Like he wants to have everything. Like he's going to, double the dancers, triple the dancers. We're going to have, at one point, honestly, I was trying to get, I wanted to have floating body parts. And I had this whole thing designed with this like black light and this stuff and these bodies, and we're going to do it up in this ladder. And then we ended up shooting a different space, so we couldn't do it. But my point is, we wanted everything to be elevated to really show like the smallness. And even in that particular episode, it's like it cuts back to LA, and it's like it feels kind of rinky dink.
Yeah.
They've got this giant audience, and people are on these tables, they're not just sitting in these little bleachers, and there's people walking around, and it's there's sort of these elegant columns, and everything's gorgeous looking. And and you look up on this big stage, and now it's like a proscenium performance, even though out there around there, it's no longer this like sitting around like a kumbaya kind of a feeling, which in some ways it does lose something, because there's something so you're so connected with the people. He now is starting to become the spectacle that is the beginning of the Chippendales that we know, right, where it is a little more hands-on. It's like, watch this spectacle versus come in, play with me.
Yeah, there is. I love that we have such a different vibe from one place to the other. Like there's such a he wants it to be such a destination with a lot of sophistication. Something about the big black VIP chairs. I don't know, the room itself has like presence. Which I thought was really cool.
Which we wanted also for Steve to feel too.
Yeah.
I'm sure he felt that.
Rude awakening for Steve.
Yeah, that's a great moment.
Yeah, it really is. I wanted to ask about Otis, just because, well, Quentin Player has such natural charisma and presence to begin with. Since he is the first major star of the first iteration of Chippendales, I guess from a choreography standpoint, how did you sort of want to make him stand out amongst a new sea of men? Just because there's just, even thinking about some of his moves on screen, it's just like, yes, of course people would naturally flock to him.
Well, I'll just tell you a little quick story about Quentin Player. He came to this production without any dance background at all.
That's
zero.
Crazy.
Zero. And the first rehearsal, I said, okay, well, we're going to have to double you, because we don't have enough time. And he's like, listen, you do what you have to do, but I'm going to work as hard as I can until you say that I don't need the double anymore. I'm just going to make it happen. I said, oh, okay, let's see. And he would work so many hours that basically he'd wear me out. And so then I'd have to have my like associate come in. And then I was like, now it's like been 9 hours. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's call the studio teachers, see if they'll work with them for a little while. So he would work 12 hours a day. And and so he got to the point where you saw him, on camera, his lines are beautiful. His technique is strong. It's like, he really, really looks like a dancer. And, the creating something for him to look different was that was a collaborative, I think, effort on, the Rob Siegel and Jenny Connor and Dylan Sellers, the producers, and myself, that we like, let's find something that's not just the typical Chippendales. Let's do something, especially because he's African-American. There's a whole part of that too, about, the racism that's involved there, to sort of elevate him too, like to give him a bit of elegance, even if he does the Fosse number and it's like stylized, he does the, the cape, and everything is much more like, he's an elegant man put into almost sort of it's like a very clean man put into a dirty situation, into a dirty environment. And then when he has to do the pimp number, it's humiliating, and he does it because, look, he needs the job, and he's a professional. He wants to walk away, but he does this job. And I just tried to always, and also there's something about him. He is so charismatic. He's just
Mhm.
the loveliest guy. And there's something very elegant about him too. So I tried to use that sort of, he has this just the way of holding himself, this carriage that's so
Yeah,
lovely.
totally.
Yeah. So I tried to, utilize it. And yeah, and I'm so proud of him. I really, after we first came out and everything, I sent him an email. Like, I was just like, I felt like his mom or something. I was like, so proud of what you have done.
Yeah,
So
he's
yeah.
fantastic. He was
And I
just
kept
sort
telling
of,
him, like, you have to go on now. You've got to do musicals. You can never stop doing
oh
musicals.
yeah,
You can do it.
yeah, totally.
Just
Oh,
find
I would
something
love
for you.
that. Well, unfortunately, I have to let you go. I could talk
No,
forever, but thank you so much for your time. I think
great
the
chatting with you.
yeah, you too. I've seen you pretty much like my whole life almost, like, and I knew you've been in like Chicago and Showgirls and everything like that. So when I realized it was you, I
The
was like,
chorus line. The chorus line.
yeah,
You got,
it was,
you got to go see that one.
yeah. Well, thank you again. I think the work is great, and
Oh, thanks
it's
so
great.
much.
Yeah,
Oh, nice to talk to you.
you
Hope
too.
to talk again.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.